So now what we're going to do is learn how to apply an external sensor, because oftentimes external sensors are better than what's on the microbit. The nice thing about the microbit is it does have all those sensors on it, and you can collect some pretty good data with them. But it's often nice to add an external sensor. To do that, we're going to need a shield. And we're going to use an air and humidity sensor. And it's going to collect our temperature and humidity. It's called an AHT sensor. And usually most of your sensors that you will utilize, no matter what company they come from, will usually tell you where they get plugged in and what the name of the sensor is, and it's usually on the back. So the AHT sensor says it on the bottom right, and then it also says I2C. So it will tell you if it needs to get plugged into the I2C port or a different port if it doesn't say I2C. So this is an I2C port. So what I'm going to do is I am going to grab a little I2C hub here. This is just an extension port, and it's going to allow me to hook up multiple things, and you can daisy chain these and hook up 3, 4, 5, any number of them. And I'm going to plug it into my I2C port of my Crowtail shield. And that shield is correlated to the little one that is right above the green terminal block. And it actually will say SCL SDA 3v3 ground. Those are the different ways of sending data and sharing the data back and forth. And then it's all 3 volts. And that is my I2C port. And if you are not if you don't remember that that's your I2C port, right on the very edge you will see a little phrase that says I2C on it, and it's a little hard to see. Actually it says 2C, right? It kind of looks like that, but it's our I2C port. And we are going to plug in my extension, and I am going to plug my air temperature and humidity sensor into my little hub. Alright, so now they're all plugged into the I2C port, so that's the wiring up of it. But now let's code it. Now one great thing with the microbit is we can add and extend the microbit's capabilities. To do that, we're going to add an extension. And what we're going to add is we're going to add an extension called Grove, because this is a Grove sensor, and so the company Seeed Studio makes a lot of these sensors, and it's the first one that pops up once I type the search term Grove, G-R-O-V-E, into the box. All I have to do is click it. Okay, so now I've got a new Grove block installed. Alright, so now if I click that, notice I can add LED strips, I can add 4-digit blocks, I can add my ultrasonic, I've got gesture, I can add a little joystick, I can add Wi-Fi. There's my AHT20, I've got a new LCD screen, I can add a color sensor, right? And now they also have a Vision AI sensor, right? And it's still got access to some of the older sensors. These DHTs are older, right? But I also can add a CO2 sensor, a temperature and humidity sensor, right? I got a little driver, right? So I can add all sorts of cool new things to my microbit. Okay, so let's use these. All right, so I've got my on, start, and forever. Okay, so one of the first things I like to do is we like to think about making programs simple for someone else to use. So I want to collect some of my data, and I also want to show the data somewhere. Okay, so let's collect my data first. So I'm actually going to make a new function, and to make a new function, it's under advanced, and I've got a little block called functions, and I'm going to just click and make a new one. I'm going to call this function get data. Okay, and this is going to be a function I'm going to use for getting my data. There we go. And I'm going to put, anytime I want to get data off a sensor, I'm going to put it in this function. So this is going to become a series of blocks that I can use over and over again anywhere in the program. So I'm going to head back over to variables. Okay, I've already got a temp variable created. Okay, but that is for the temperature, remember, that was on the microbit. So I'm actually going to make a new variable here, and I'm going to call this variable air temp, because that's what I'm interested in. Later, we're actually going to use one for water temperature, so it's useful to make sure that your variables have different names. Okay. So I've got my set air temp. I'm going to drag that block over, and now I need to get the sensor data off of that. So I'm going to go to my Grove, because that's where my sensor is. I'm going to scroll down to my AHT, and you can decide whether you want the Celsius or the Fahrenheit. Let's go with Fahrenheit, since I'm currently in the United States, so Fahrenheit is what is typically our students are used to measuring. Alright, so now I've got my air temp set to that, so it's going to read the air temperature. I'm going to make another variable, and I'm going to call this variable humidity. I'm going to click OK, and notice I've got another one that's popped right up. I'm going to take that set humidity. I got to go back to my Grove again and do the exact same thing. Scroll down till I see my AHT, and there it is, Grove, read the humidity. So this little block is going to allow me to read the humidity. Okay. Now, one thing that I often like to do is these guys are going to give you readings with lots of decimal points after them. So I often will go to my math block and take that round function and just round the data as it comes in. Right, so it's going to round it to like 72 or 73, right? We don't need something super precise, right? And it also just slows down the reading and things. So, and it makes it harder to read, so I like the rounding part of it. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to want to be able to show the data onto a screen. And so there's lots of ways that we can do this. And I can use my input blocks again and say A and B to show me the temperature and humidity, or I could have it constantly showing up on the microbit screen. Right? So let's do it on the microbit screen. So I'm actually going to go to functions now, and I'm going to make another function, and I'm going to call this function show data. This function is going to just be dedicated to making the data visible, right, in some form. So I'm going to go to basic. I'm going to say show string. That's my text. I'm going to say AET equals for air temperature, again to keep it short. And then I'm going to say show number. And again, I could get it directly from the Grove, but I've got this nice variable here. So I'm going to say show number air temp, because this information here is getting stored into this variable air temp. And I can do the same thing for humidity. So now I'm going to show string again, and this time I'm going to say H equals, okay, and I'm going to go to basic show number, and I'm going to go back to variables, and I'm going to grab humidity. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to download it. Alright, it's taking a little bit of time to download. It's a little bit of a bigger program. Okay. Now it's downloaded. Okay. And once it's downloaded, I'm going to stick it into my shield. Because this way, when it's not in the shield, right, it's not connected to any of my sensors. So I'm going to be getting a lot of zeros. Okay. Now, I stuck it in. But notice nothing is going on, because we forgot a step. And students forget this all the time. Look in that forever block right there. There is nothing there, and there's nothing showing up on my microbit, right? What you have to do is you have to go to functions, and you've got these call blocks. You have to make sure you call these functions in the forever loop, because right now these functions are just out here. We can use them, but unless they're in the forever block or in some block that the software or that the microbit can see to run its code, it doesn't exist. Okay? Because these are functions waiting to be used. Now, with my 2 functions in my forever loop, I hit download again. And notice it's faster the second time through. Now I'm able to see my temperature, which is 82 degrees. And the humidity is 59. Okay, so now I've got that information. And I can manipulate it, right, by holding my temperature sensor in my hand. And my temperature should soon go up. So it was 89. Now I've been holding it for about 10 seconds. Still 89, so it might take a second. Alright, see if I can get it over 90. Oh, my humidity just went up to 69. Okay, here's my air temperature again. It is now 92. Alright, so we know that it's collecting the data. So that is how you collect information from a basic sensor. But one of the challenges that we want to do is we want to be able to get it on a screen, just because reading stuff off the Microbit screen is kind of painful and slow. So that's what we're going to do.